Hello, everybody. This is Connor Listoka, and this is 372 Pages. We'll Never Get Back, the podcast where we do a book club sort of thing with books that we are not expecting to like. And we are currently reading Shadow Moon, the continuation of the Willow verse, the first novel in a trilogy. And my co-host, Mike Nelson, is here as always. Mike, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm feeling, I'm ready to squeak. Squeak away.
We got some people last episode, who thought that there was some squeaking, like there was a hamster wheel next to our microphone. And, we tried to pinpoint where this happened on the track. We eventually tracked it down. They made it sound like there was the Sky Dome was being demolished across the street from where we were recording. And I had a bit more trouble tracking it down. It wasn't as prominent as they made it seem.
However, we did track the error down, fully attributed to my rig, which I've always thought was a hell of a rig, and now it's really casting a lot of doubt on it.
Seeing it in a new light.
Actually, I didn't realize that I shouldn't be doing a CPR practice on Sir Squeaks-a-Lot, my hamster, who I keep next to me at all times. So he's here, but hands off, I will not be touching him, and hopefully that will solve the problem.
Well, it worked if he's still around, I guess.
He's looking good. He's hanging in there. He's an old feller.
Now I understand your World of Warcraft handle as well. I was always puzzled about where Sir Squeaks-a-Lot came from, but it's a tribute.
Right. Yes. Well, I just melded my spirit with him and healed him up, so everything is good.
Your hamsterkin.
Yes.
So we in America, where we are celebrating Thanksgiving in 2 days. It's obviously not a universal holiday. The guy that I spent like $85 to send the copy of Lara the White Worm that he won in our Patreon giveaway in Ireland is probably not celebrating Thanksgiving, but he can be thankful that he won that book.
Your book winged its way across the pond?
Yeah, it was not that expensive, but it was the sort of thing where I was like, just send me your address, man, and we'll get the book out to you. And he's like, Republic of Ireland. And I was like,
Yeah, here's a PDF. Okay.
I was like, Mike, how much do I need to send you to reimburse you? And you were like, $2.25 media rate. And I was like, well, how about that?
Yeah, mine was pretty easy. I probably could have walked it over to the winner, but yeah.
But yeah, it's Thanksgiving on Thursday. So what are you thankful for?
Oh boy, there's been a lot of turmoil in my life, and so Thanksgiving is a time to just pause, to reflect. I'm thankful for family, friends. I have healthy children. I have a lovely wife, and we're going to visit family. So I mean, all the pretty much straight down the line traditional stuff. How about you?
Huh. I kind of wish I had gone first. I'm thankful because yesterday in the mail, a listener named Christian sent me a complete set of Tech War trading cards. So I thought I had it going on pretty well, but yeah, that visiting family and all that sounds pretty good too. But I've got card number 9. It shows Jake Cardigan's cat trying to revive him from a tech stupor.
Wait, what?
I think that's like meant to illustrate just the dangers of tech. It sort of is a general thing. I don't think it's something from the story, but I do have card 66 where Gomez, Jake, and Beth Kitteridge are eating lunch at a restaurant called Fish and Sammy's.
Hang on. I didn't hear anything past Beth Kitteridge.
We've got the individual card. So we have Beth Kitteridge. It says she's an electronics whiz. She and her scientist father are at work on a system that will nullify every tech chip in the world. She met Jake Cardigan when he was hired to find her after she'd been kidnapped. They have since become quite close. And we've got Beth Kitteridge at her computer doing some sort of hacking. She's into the mainframe, it appears. And,
so wait a minute, and you have the complete cards?
Yeah, a lot of people's card sets are they're missing. For example, card 55, where Fanny, a sometimes dancer, is arm wrestling a guy named Earl, who appears to be some sort of government official and maybe a military guy. I think this is a continuation of the text story because I don't remember a sometimes dancer named Fanny.
Earl sounds like he would come out of the Trucking Through Time universe, not to the...
Yes, very much. He is a mustachioed guy in a Generalissimo outfit. He's drinking what appears to be tea, but maybe it's tech tea. I don't know. But
and you say that one was what, 55?
Card 55,
and the other was 66?
Yes, there's 100 cards in this series.
My God.
I think we might be getting into like tech kill turf with the continuation of the story here. But yeah, I mean, flipping through these, I revised my statement. I'm pretty thankful. This is quite a thing to get. It includes one of the packs, like the foil packs that it came in. It advertises randomly packed Tech Chrome trademark and autographed cards. I did not get any Tech Chrome or autographed cards, but still pretty thankful.
I look forward to that moment when you're circling around the dinner table and it stops on you and watching all your aunts and uncles' jaws hang open as you spend a full 5 minutes explaining why you're thankful for these tech cards, passing them out to the family, and just do it 100% seriously.
My mom informed me that there is a chance that some neighbors from like a couple houses down might be joining us as well. Woman my mom's age and two of her daughters who you grew up, you're on the same swim team, but they were like 5 and 7 years younger than me, so I've never spoken to them. So I think that would go over pretty well, I'm thinking.
And just look at them very intently. Which one is your favorite? Make them answer. Yeah.
Right. But I think I'll do a write-up on some of the best cards for Patreon just to sort of justify the purchase, the very kind purchase that Christian sent to me, and to maybe since I will write them up, take full advantage of the $6.95 he spent on them. He won't hunt me down now that he has my address. Right.
And I'm sure my set is coming anytime soon. Looking forward to that, Christian. Thank you. So we have all the departments today, yes?
Oh, yeah. We've got some real dumb sentences, a wide variety. We've got some diabolical fanfic that I think is going to be a bit more tricky than last time when you went 5 for 5. And we have some emails, some really good emails, including one that sort of gets to the mystery of maybe the motivation behind this book, since we are deeply suspicious of whether this was actually a Willow book from the start. And someone tracked down an interview with Lucas's author, Chris Claremont, that might shine some light on this whole situation.
Yeah. I'm looking for that and wondering whether was anything. I like when bitching about this in my own mind, just blaming it on Lucas, of course. But I'm deeply suspicious he had anything to do with it. But when you come across those idiotic names, you're like, sure,
of course.
But that was the work of a moment for him to send him over a pack of names. Stick these in there.
Right. We'll shine some light on that maybe after the first chapter. But we have a lot to cover, even though not a ton has happened. By the time we finish this episode, we're going to be a quarter of the way through this book, and we are going to it's probably the first 10 minutes of a TV episode could have covered where we are so far.
Man, I don't know. Is all is forgiven for Pappy? The reading is so difficult for me.
It's very difficult. And here's my theory. I think that it's difficult in the sense of that it's hard to understand what the hell is supposed to happen in terms of time, space, and but I think that it's because this guy was writing comics, so he had always had a trusted artist to sort of do a lot of the heavy lifting for him, in terms of like, where these people are in relation to each other, what they're doing when he's sort of describing their weird mindset. And I think that, he got used to leaning on these talented X-Men drawers that he always had in his stable. And now he's just trying to convey, action and, space on his own. And he is coming up very short.
Yeah, I was thinking of that when I, for a brief time, worked in animation, and there were talented artists, armies of them, waiting to take my lame scripts. And, at first I'm doing all the things like, then he moves over here and he does this, and I'm like, figure out a gag right here. I don't know what happens. Right. It's quite a luxury, something that you and I as writers everything has to be described by us. I mean, I'm not talking about riff tracks, but outside of that.
Sure.
He was probably leaning very heavily on that, and then realized, wait a minute, this is a novel.
Yeah. Say what you will about Pappy when he described the chimera sharding. I could definitely envision it. So
we've all encountered that. So
vividly.
You just work it up in your mind. Wow. Well, shall we dive in?
Yeah, let's get back in. We left off in the middle of chapter 1, where they were about to confront a Daikini who had been stalking them, the humans of this world, so to speak. And we had been introduced to Thorn Drumheller, which is what Willow changed his name to, and he's palling around with 2 brownies, Frangine and I don't remember. And then they're also traveling with 2 eagles. Who are sort of flying above them, and Willow uses his insight to view the world through their eyes.
Yeah, the eagles are, man, they're not richly drawn characters, at least not yet.
Not yet.
The other brownie is Rule.
Rule and Frangine, yes.
And I will correct you that I think he didn't change. Well, I guess accepting the name change is changing your name. But really, he was kind of called Big Tuna by the Queen, right? And, and he's just like, yeah, sounds good to me, I guess.
Yeah, he said, like, I'll accept this, since none of this is happening. He thought it was a dream. I'll accept that. And then he realized it wasn't a dream. So I guess by his own dream logic, he was then, it's sort of like if you get jinxed by someone and you can't speak till they say your name and then they drop dead, you're just, you're permanently jinxed.
Right. So guess that's my name. Fool me once with that dream crap, and
yeah. Well, we heard about how the brownies were sort of the masters of the going for the verbal jugular, but we get some more insight into what they're able to convey. And this is where my first note was Rule, I guess, is saying, "Damnation, Frangine, why do you always have to make a speech?" And Frangine responds by lifting his eyebrows most eloquently, as if to say, "Look who's talking." So at least one listener, Chris, requested a video challenge of us lifting our eyebrows eloquently.
Mm-hmm.
But so we'll see if we're able to do that. But I just look who's talking is another just example of their searing wit.
Yeah, well, it's no wood of the maker. Which was, I think, supposed to be some sort of a insult or curse or something that Rule yells at one point.
Like Mother of God.
Yeah, wood of the maker. So I don't know what that means. It's not explained. But it is, and this gets right into one of my big gripes, the capitalization or lack thereof of proper nouns and phrases that appear to be, common sayings or what have you, or
sure.
So I'm wood of the maker capitalized.
Wood and maker both capitalized?
Correct.
Okay. Well, then we get another one that sort of is, we had insight and outsight and mage sight. Mage sight appears to have gone by the wayside, but those were all camel cased. And then, but we quickly get mind speak.
Yeah. I had big questions about that because as you have the names at your fingertips, I was, eyesight or rift tracks or whatever the hell it was. Mm-hmm. Now it's mind speak. So how does it differ? Did you tease it out? I did not spend time.
I did not. I realized that they sort of set that in motion in the prologue when the dragon overheard what he was thinking, and the dragon informed him that all animals everywhere could always hear Willow through mind speak. And so I guess that's how he has been communicating with the eagles, aka the poser pigeons, as the brownies call them. And I hadn't heard the term poser since middle school, when it was like, he doesn't really like Soundgarden, he just has their shirt, he's a poser. But I'm glad it made a comeback in in whatever year it is in the Willowverse.
And I wonder how stinging that is to the eagles, who we haven't really met.
No.
We just, it's kind of like they're in the other room, and sometimes they mention them, like, did you guys hear that? And yeah, we got that. But,
right.
So,
yeah,
but nothing yet.
No, they're just sort of soaring around, but they do come into play during the confrontation that ensues as Willow confronts the Daikini, who I guess was just around the corner. He sort of like emerges from a bush and startles him, and they sort of start to have a talk about the death dogs.
Mm-hmm.
Which it turns out, I guess, are going to be a major plot going forward. The first time I heard the phrase "death dogs," I was like, "Well, of course they're going to, encounter the real villains here, because that's a very stupid phrase, and they were just a trifling part of the movie. But a lot of talk about them and an encounter with them coming up shortly.
Oh, a big, an action set piece of a massive one with death dogs. Yeah, it, in the, what is it, The Princess Bride, like the rodents of unusual size, being cheeky with kind of a dumb name. Like, this is just death dogs. And, we're stuck with them.
Yeah, it's, they are, creatures that he's been dealing with over his past dozen years, and he has come to understand that they are not normal creatures. Thorn knew that from brute experience. They did not live as normal creatures, and they in no way died as them. So by the time we are encountering the death dogs, they're sort of like vampires. We have to cut off their head and burn their corpses. So it's the book is about to take a darker turn than the movie ever had it in itself.
Yeah, they were, wacky sledding downhill kind of things in the movie. Right. This one is just gore and death everywhere.
Right, it's amazing.
Right out of the gate, I wanted to offer you the accent challenge, because we got a lot of them in this book.
Oh yeah, we do,
and we have to kind of read through them, as I call. I wish, as always, I think I've said it before, when someone has an accent, I would like it described and then get the hell out of my way. I don't want to read through it with, words meant to be, homophones or whatever they're called. So here's your challenge with the Daikini, who is a pathfinder. Mm-hmm. What is his name?
Gerwin.
Gerwin. Okay. Ones I tangled with figured for outsiders like they were proper raiders, stead of dumb beasties. I called them scouts. One caught my girl a wicked slash across the rump. I was just doing it, try to do it as plain as I could. But what do you got for an accent on that?
I was sort of thinking, it is unintelligible in the book, and we get another one coming up with the Riverman that is even worse.
I hated that so much.
What I was interpreting, my guess was, I went there last year, but Newfoundland has a very distinct accent that's sort of like a weird combination of like Irish and English and Canadian, all sort of mixed into a funny, a pleasant, folksy sounding, clipped, that sort of thing. Like, so that was what I was interpreting it as. I cannot imitate it, but it is unique. If you look it up, you get this sort of it's folksy and charming. Very difficult to read when you're missing every other letter.
Yes, very difficult to read. Just to because I don't like it at all, my response to it is it's sarcastically give him a Chicago accent. So,
oh, okay. Yeah.
Once I tangled with them, figured them for outsiders there. They were proper raiders instead of dumb beasties. I call them scouts. So that's what I do in my mind, just to be a dick. And so far it's working.
In every fantasy movie, these characters are attributed to like noble sounding, Shakespearean English accents, which, there's absolutely no reason to assume they shouldn't be something comical like Blue Collar Chicago. And that would really change the tone of just about every one of these movies to sub that in.
Right. Okay. So that's...
the death dogs are coming around the bend there.
Yeah, you're going to find them death dogs, there.
You got to sever their heads before you toss them on the fire. Otherwise, they come back and they'll kill your daughter.
Yeah, they'll give you real trouble with your horse there,
Yeah, the mayor slashed me across the rump. I've never done a Chicago accent for any sustained amount of time, and I don't know, that went okay.
Nicely done, yeah.
This is what I thought. This was sort of when I realized that me and Thorn were on the same page. When he's encountering the Garen, it wasn't Gerwin, Garen. Thorn thought of casting wards, but didn't see the sense. The hounds would simply wriggle through the cracks in the energy field. Yeah, so I was with him on that. Like, wards, like, what's the point? Like,
I have my exact notice. Sure, we all think about doing this all the time.
And wards uncapitalized warrants no special capitalization. I have never heard that as a term for spells, but
well, you got them political wards there in Chicago, So he's probably talking about on the south side there,
Got to make sure the next governor doesn't go to jail. We're running the streak here.
We're 5 for 5 there, Connor. We're 5 for 5. Anyway.
So we're not sure what this was the first time that I was super confused, and where I assumed that Chris Claremont was not able to rely on his comic book artist. Willow it's not a ward because he's not casting a ward, but he is doing some sort of like bonding with the death dogs.
Yes.
Okay. He undergoes some sort of weird transformation, and I think it's sort of like, you know what? This could be, in Game of Thrones, you were a warg with a G when you Bran. He was able to warg into like an eagle or something to sort of like take over an animal. So this is maybe sort of what he's doing. He says, in memory was the image of the death dogs he's killed. He tucked it around his spirit, pulling on the essence of the beasts in the same way he would a coat, dimly aware of the Daikini losing his own balance and tumbling away. The Nelwyn didn't need a mirror to know that his eyes were glowing or that they'd turned a milky amber. He knew it was an illusion, but he still couldn't help reflexively tucking his tongue back in his mouth as his teeth appeared suddenly to grow much longer and a whole lot sharper.
Mm-hmm.
And so this doesn't really bear out anything, but he's sort of assumed the characteristics of the death dog. The Daikini is startled at this transformation, even though Thorn knows it's not real. And I don't really know how this bears out in terms of when they attack, like what advantage it gives him.
I don't know either. I actually had that. That was a dumb sentence of mine.
Which part?
Tucking it around his spirit and pulling the essence of the beast in the same way he would a coat, and dimly aware. It's just a long sentence with a lot of shit that you have to go, wait, what is happening? And then it goes on forever.
Yeah, that
doesn't stop.
That was just a selection of the warging, but he does that again with the eagle. He sort of like uses insight to see from their vision. So I guess it's just a fantasy trope that you just a mage can inhabit these creatures to sort of gain their perspective. He does it with the dying horse later as well.
Don't you think there's so much of it though that I'm losing track. I'm just at all times assuming that anyone can listen to anyone's mind and can cast themselves into, because there's like 7 different versions of it we're having to keep track of here.
Mm-hmm.
The eagles can hear him all the time. Other animals can hear him. He can inhabit other beings. He can communicate with animals. He can heal animals.
It is. We get more aspects of his power coming up soon, but it's a. I don't think we exactly used this term last time, but it's like when Homer Simpson is being asked by the nerds, like, why Itchy and Scratchy are, animation continuity errors, and they just say, oh, whenever something like that happens, a wizard did it.
Right.
And so, like, this is literally what happens. Like, anytime Thorn is needed to do something, he's able to do it because he's evidently the most powerful wizard in the entire world. Even though the last time we saw him, he was like, he could make a bird appear by the end of the movie. But now he can heal, he can rise mountains, he can warg, he can shapeshift, he can see through people's eyes. So anytime a Deus Ex is needed, he's able to do it.
So yeah, in the years that he's been wandering the road, he advanced quickly from the disappearing pig trick that he failed.
Right.
Only pulled off successfully once with the child, but now he is he's like Tom Bombadil in Lord of the Rings, where he can just make the most evil thing ever created, make it just disappear, and so.
But yeah, so that's gonna come in handy. Whenever you need something done, he'll be able to do it. So just keep that in your pocket going forward. It's just like his magic pouch that can hold whatever he needs and keeps it exactly as he needs it, and he can just root around and find whatever he needs whenever he needs it.
Right.
Yeah.
And so we get into a big action set piece.
Oh boy.
And I say it's an action set piece only after kind of studying it from all angles, getting irritated, coming back to it, trying to figure out what's going on. But I believe what he's trying to describe is a pack of death dogs coming, and they just do a big battle with them, and they kill all the dogs.
Yeah.
But it is long and impenetrable. His tortured sentences are beginning to drive me over the edge. Your thoughts?
Yeah, very hard to tell it time and space. But but then the dogs attacking, non-poisonous dogs, remind you.
Yes.
But they are there's chaos, literary chaos, of words on the page that don't really add up, interspersed with just incredible violence that, again, if you were a kid who got this from the Scholastic Book Fair, hoping to continue your fun adventure, like you said, sledding down hills on shields and dressing up in drag to avoid getting discovered, you are going to be just a changed kid after reading this, because the dogs start attacking, and we get this sort of description. The Daikini put a bolt into the breast of another, the force of the impact tumbling the beast on its four legs. Thorn was there before it could rise again to hammer the point of another spear through its skull. Your sword, he bellowed to the Daikini. Sever the head. He wanted to tell the man to hurry, but it turned out there was no need. With a two-handed strike, the deed was done. The trooper's blade had taken its first life. So you've got hammering spears through jugulars. You've got severing heads. And then you get Rule jumps up with fang swords to plunge them into Death Dog's eyes. Yes. You get the sentence, he'd lost count of how many they'd killed. You get the Death Dogs are trying to disembowel a dead horse who has splashed all over with blood, no color to the image, none to the entire scene, only blotches and smears of glistening indigo under the moon's unblinking glow. It's intense and gruesome.
You also get in the middle of it. Here's one of the things that irritates me. Like, all right, they're being attacked by some things. They cut, one's head off, one down, 12 to go, whatever. The great hunt numbered 13. Thorn prayed they didn't face that many. If they did, they had no chance. 2 more exploded out of the darkness while he raced towards his own bedroll. He heard the tunk of the Daikini's bow, followed by the kilk natch of the string being cocked. So I assume you're all saying, like I did, go to hell. Right. What is happening here? A great hunt, I think that's the first time we had that, is a capitalized. Yes.
Okay.
Great
and so,
hunt.
yeah, so those are like Batman, Pow and Blam, I guess,
Tunk
cartoon.
And kilk natch, which is hyphenated. So he's...
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, it's not yet in the common usage, I guess, as a word by itself, but soon will be, kilk natch.
Kids playing, cowboys in the backyard are always going, kilk natch, kilk natch, kilk natch.
Right. Speaking of, what, and maybe this has come up before because I'm fascinated by it. What was your gun sound when you were a kid?
Oh, man. Kapow, probably.
Like,
I did.
Did you try to make the sound though with your mouth? Like
I never could do the machine gun sound. People would be like, and I could never do that. I could never roll my R's in Spanish. I was a poor man's Michael Winslow.
Well, I had the standard, make a noise, which I won't do. It'll explode into the microphone right now. But there was a kid who did dow 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 as his shot, and it always just bugged the hell out of me. Like, just don't make any sound at all. That's just awful.
Yeah,
say pow or kapow.
Right.
Dow, 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 dow. Anyway, kilk natch.
That kid's a Chicago alderman now. So
that's right.
Yeah, you don't want the Al Capone coming around. He'll go put some dow 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 into you.
Now, if you'll excuse me, it looks like I got a visitor, so I'm gonna get out of my cell for a few hours here and head over there.
I've been doing some of that Buddhist meditating, reading that Tao Te Ching.
Oh boy.
I liked this part because it reminded me of a simpler time on this podcast when we were reading a book that we liked a bit better. Willow is, where was this? The Eagles start chipping in on this attack. They've been sort of just hovering above. And I liked what you said about the dogs sort of bursting in one by one. It was it's very like a Bruce Lee movie where the guys sort of, they let them have a fair fight instead of all attacking at once.
Right. As pack animals tend to do, where they work together. These guys, they stand back in a little circle, and one at a time they attack them.
Yeah, so the eagles are sort of doing that too. The eagles are waiting till they're needed, and then they swoop in, they rake the death dog open to the bone. It says it knew what was coming, but there was nothing it could do. Nothing below its shoulders work anymore because the eagle has paralyzed it with its talons. Thorn knew from a glance it was dying. The fiery structures of its life force had been savaged as cruelly as its flesh. I guess that's him using insight to determine that. And then it says Anel, who is the female eagle, stooped as quickly, as powerfully as her mate, her own claws savaging the death dog from breast to hip, doing to it what had been intended for the mare. She ripped out its heart and cast it on the fire. It was a magnificent sight. So we got a little Charles E. Harris taste here for all the fans of the infamous Trucking Through Time scene. If you had been missing appendages, vital organs being ripped off and cast onto a fire, we've got that back for you. And hopefully that becomes a 372 staple just as much as long hands have been.
I could have used a better part of the body, but hey,
right.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, we have not yet gotten a description of death dog genitals. And for that, it has been 100 pages of this book, and I am frankly disgusted that it has not happened yet, because what am I supposed to do? Am I just supposed to be imagining this on my own? The deviant art has so far come up very short on the fan art standpoint. So
your own pencil sketches, which you keep sending me obsessively, are
right.
They're getting closer, Connor.
Right. My complete set of Shadow Moon cards have not come yet, and I'm sure that there will be at least 10 cards devoted to that. But
speaking of gore, here's a little bit from Thorn. With a wrench, Thorn tore himself loose from his trance, tasting copper as he spoke from a slice taken out of the inside of his cheek by teeth that his thoughts were trying to manipulate as though they were in the mouth of a beast. So he spoke from the slice in his mouth. So I don't know whether he using that as his mouth or whatever. That's a bit of a confusing thing. But he was trying to be a beast, and so he cut his own mouth open and then spoke through the slice.
Sure, but we were led to believe from that earlier statement where he first warged into a wolf that it was all an illusion, right?
I guess he was just trying, though. He started, death dogs chew at their own mouths a lot. They haven't gotten used to having those teeth inside them. So that's what happened there.
Well, also things that the death dogs are lacking in is they fail to realize that our hero is a Deus Ex magician who can do whatever he wants to. He can do. He's by the fire, so he scoops up a brand using a scrap of concentration to shunt the flames to the end of his wood and fan them to peak intensity. So he's like a firebender. And then he says he charged a breath with a streamer of power, huffed it down the length of his torch, and flames exploded outward from the burning tip. This, the death dogs hadn't expected. How could they? I'm sympathetic to them because, as we said before, he's making pigs disappear about 50% of the time, and now he's just casting flames wherever he sees fit.
There was one death dog who was, waiting his turn in back, who was like, he's going to do the... Yeah. Dave, come on, man. We talked about this. This
was discussed in the pregame thing. We all said we're going to go in one at a time and look out because he may be a literal god. So
this is a great sentence. The eagles took no chances. The Nulwen had his perceptions of death. They had theirs. They knew which to trust best. So the eagles and he arguing in bars over who had a better perception of death.
Yeah, right.
Come on, I'll show you right now. I'll do it. See that bartender there? His grandma died. How long ago? The eagle's like, I don't know, it was a month and a half. My perception of death, way better than yours. Shot.
But are they looking at the death dog with the severed head and arguing about that? How much are they parsing this? Are they just the moment that death actually is pinpointed? They can, I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah, we haven't get too much of a sense of the eagles, so it's we're just being told about their relationship at this point in time.
Yeah, there is one point where, at least to me, it looks as though he loses track of how many hounds there are because he uses hound or hounds at different spots. Says there's a bunch of them, but then just says the hound. in a way that's confusing. Not, he's not talking about a single hound. He's
right. Well, that could be the death perception, because there could be one hound that the eagles have not deemed dead yet, versus Thorn, who's seeing 2 hounds there. So they're using just the eagle's perception at that point in time.
Yeah. Here's another baffling capitalization problem. A lot of, sort of proper nouns and great hunts and, all of his powers, his eyesight and his backup camera or whatever. The mountain's getting no capitalization love at all. The mountain sensed his approach. They wanted him still more than ever. He was counting on that. He fed more power to the fire until his torch blazed so brightly. And then another portion of power, capitalized, he used to mask this from the death dogs, capitalized. But mountains, go to hell, mountains. You suck.
And they're evidently sensing things. They're a character. He did something last time in last episode that I guess we're led to believe was interacting with the mountains, but now they are firmly sentient.
Yes. Yeah. He spit blood on a pile of their stones last time.
Sure.
I don't know whether that was, doing them a solid or, spitting in their face. I don't know.
Well, they want him, I guess. But yeah, we start to hear about witch lights, which I think are something the mountains are controlling, not capitalized, however. They began flickering, the witch lights began flickering beneath the glassy surface of the scar, I guess, even before the death dogs landed. Different hues, darker textures than the ones he remembered going after him. Those had been desire, these were hate. Not sure what the hell that means. Then it says, the mountains recognized a resonance of the power, capitalized, that had maimed them years before, and took the opportunity to strike back with all their might. A big at
that whole.
So the mountains,
exact thing you just read, yeah, I don't know.
The mountains during the cataclysm, there was a mountain that was destroyed and was replaced by the scar, and so now the other mountains, I guess, are on their brethren's behalf are recognize that these death dogs were part of the same evil that Queen Bavmorda caused with the cataclysm. So they to get back at the death dogs, who they recognize as being part of her crew, start vaporizing them.
Yeah, they turn into little powdery, into ashes or something and disappear.
Yeah. It says, between one step and the next, the death dogs turned from flesh to molten fire, retaining form and animation for a step farther until they cooled, and he beheld a pair of monstrously ugly statues. No words on the statues' genitals. In that same heartbeat, their momentum caught up with them, all the impetus of their headlong flight, shattering them to bits as though they'd been struck by a hammer. Not a decent-sized pebble remained. They were reduced instantly to dust, which was in turn swept up and away by the same swirling winds. So that just again thought like something that he was envisioning the 5 consecutive comics panels where they're burnt, then a statue, dust evaporates.
Right. Well, maybe this can shed some light on it. Their desperate calls sounded like off-key hums. They made Thorn's nerves jangle, his heart lose rhythm within his chest, pounding too hard one set, not at all the next, and he quickly threw a calming pass over himself for protection.
Oh, calming pass, capital C, capital P?
No! Damn it.
Through a calming pass sounds like, through a saving roll in Dungeons & Dragons.
I assume that's what it was meant to evoke.
So yeah, I guess he can just do that too, through a calming pass over himself. And I think that's probably one of the starts of a theme for the rest of our section, which is that Thorn is utterly exhausted by what he's just done. And yet he keeps killing death dogs, saving things, healing things, and it just describes him as being like, he was so tired. His exhaustion was sapped every inch of strength from his soul, and then he brings a horse back to life. So it doesn't really appear to have actually any bearing on his ability to do things or walk for 3 days straight to get to the river or anything like that.
Before he does the horse thing, he has to murder a boy.
Oh, yes. This is amazing.
I guess that's what's going on, right?
It is in a section full of confusing things. This one confused me. I thought I understood what was happening, and then last night when I made my notes for this, I realized it was completely wrong. So, yeah, a boy approaches him. He is the leader of the death dogs, It was a face Thorn knew, and the recognition of it almost got him killed a second time. Ferran, he called, more a question than acknowledgement. So this is a boy named Ferran. We do not know who Ferran is. This is the first mention of him. But we get this description of it. And so I'll read it, and you tell me what you think Thorn's relationship is to this boy. He knew there was no hope, a foregone conclusion the moment Ferran had tasted blood, tasted death, but he turned the full force of his insight on the boy regardless, praying to find some small remnant of the lad he'd brought into the world a decade ago. So what you read that, this is a boy that he has brought into the world. What does that mean to you?
His son.
His son, yeah.
Because he's not a what do you call it? What's the...
He's
I almost had the name. Someone who
Daikini.
helps give birth.
Oh, a midwife.
Well, yeah, midwife. What's the other name? Starts with a D.
Doula.
Doula. Sorry. Yes.
Yeah. So I was like, yeah. So you just read that, and it's like this. I assume this is his son. But so then I went back. I looked it up. In the movie, his kids are named Rannan. That's the boy, and Mims is the daughter. She went on to do the hit song "This Is Why I'm Hot," and. Blast from the past. But yeah, no Ferran. And so I looked up on the Willow wiki, and it is not a big entry for Ferran. It just says he's a Daikini boy that was brought by Willow Offgood into the world some years after the Cataclysm. No expounding on what the hell that means.
Brought into the world.
So
yeah, I mean, I guess delivered him.
Yeah, and they use that phrase later. He uses it when he's talking to the ship captain, but like extremely confusing to just let that hang out there. Book was obviously written decades before any sort of wikis existed, so I'm not sure what you were supposed to take away if you were reading this in 1995.
Well, here's our hero, Thorn. Thorn bent the boy more and more until, at last, and with an awful crack, Ferran's back broke. 10-year-old Ferran. It was like slicing the strings on a puppet. All the tension fled from the boy's body, and he collapsed to the ground, little more than a collection of sticks. He wasn't yet dead. His eyes moved. His mouth still worked. He made no sound, though, for his lungs had lost the capacity to draw in air, as had his 10-year-old heart the ability to beat. Willow.
Yeah, if you went to Wendy's and got one of those color changing cups that I got as a 7-year-old, and then you went home and decided to read that, Willow is breaking a boy's back with his bare hands.
A 10-year-old's back in half.
So during this whole thing, I was just like, what are the Eagles doing? What is the Daikini, the Brownies? They're just sort of like sitting back. Just catching their breath, I guess, as Willow is single-handedly snapping the boy's back.
I think after reading and rereading and trying to parse it out that it's a little bit away from the action.
Okay.
So just assume that that fight is happening around a campfire, a little 20 yards off or something. I don't know.
Yeah, Willow, what are you doing? Willow just struggling with the 10-year-old boy. But I also wondered, we've all seen Willow. We know what Willow looks like and his relationship to the Daikini in this world. So if you're wondering how he's able to do this, he provides a little bit more of an answer than just a wizard did it. It says, to most, especially among the Daikini, size and strength went together. Lack one, you had to lack the other, especially when the odd proportions of Nelwyns were thrown into the mix. In Thorn's case, folks saw a figure that barely reached a grown man's hips and accorded a child's ability to go with its stature. Little notice was taken of the breadth of his chest, and the power of his arms and shoulders were generally mistaken for the bulk of his clothes. In the right circumstance, he was a match and more for those 3 times his size. So there you go. He can break your back with his bare hands.
Right.
Because the author said so.
I like people looking at him, not assuming he's muscular, assuming he's wearing 3 fisherman's sweaters or something.
Yes. He's doing one of those YouTube videos where you see how many T-shirts you can put on.
Right. There's I promise never to do this to you. I promise never to grumble mutter at you. That was a phrase that came up.
Man,
I think the Brownies are grumble muttering.
Ugh, grumble muttering as they go for the verbal jugular.
Yeah.
They say that Ferran he sort of uses his insights to gauge what had made the boy sort of become a like half death dog leader of their pack. He says Ferran had been unafraid. He'd been lured to the dark side, some might say. He was certain in his core that the guy who lured him, would never do him harm. It was a deception as absolute as the boy's faith. He was told that evil was good, and so embraced it with all his heart. To his final moment, he never realized how he'd been totally betrayed. So Ferran was kind of a dumbass.
Yeah.
Some guy was like, no, evil's good. And he's like, well, if you say so.
Yeah.
And so then next thing you know, he's running with a pack of death dogs.
Yeah, you can tell a 10-year-old, don't touch the stove. It's hot, but he's going to do it at some point. Got to see it for himself. So yeah, become a death dog. Don't do it. Well, screw you, Dad. I'm going to. Here's something I absolutely do not understand. This is just a 3 lines from it. He exhaled a hard puff, and Rule yelped in protest as the brownie suddenly found himself blown onto his backside. Thorn. Mind speech from one of the eagles, sorrow mingling with reproach. For an awful moment he thought one of them had been hurt. It was the mare.
Oh.
So the eagle said Thorn, but it was the mare who said Thorn?
I guess the horse sounds a lot like an eagle in mind speak. You don't know. We don't know how things sound in mind speak. In my obviously uneducated opinion, a horse would sound very different from an eagle. But
yes, I mean, what's your horse? I assume is
Thorn.
Talks like this.
Right, exactly.
That's the standard horse.
And the eagle's a bit more like, probably more noble, like, Thorn, I see that you are using your mage sight. Or actually, you don't use your mage sight too much these days. You use insight and outsight.
Right. So he hears Thorn. It's like, it's one of the eagles.
Yes.
No, dumbass. It's me.
And the best part of the Thorn talking to him is that he has sort of walked back to the site of everyone hanging out, and he sees the Daikini laying beneath a slaughtered death dog, and he's like, it says, Thorn had no idea if the man was still alive, nor any desire to use insight to find out. So he walks back. He's like, who cares about that guy? I'm gonna talk to a horse. Like, the horse is my top priority here.
Yeah, and also, he's throwing that stuff around. It seems like he can't even help but sort of merging with his eyesight or whatever. And this, he's not even gonna. It even happens by accident, but I'm still not going to do it for you.
Yeah, he sort of is. He's putting on the steely, straight ahead gaze that you use when you walk past the guy ringing the bell at the outside the grocery store.
Yeah, pretending that your head won't even turn to the left 1 degree.
Right, you're taking a phone call or something but to attend to a horse, and he does feel like there's he has strong opinions here. It says he starts healing the horse. He strokes her neck, offering the warmth within him, poised to wipe away her pain, then snip the last frayed cords that bound her to the world. But he couldn't. It enraged him to feel her misery. So, like, Willow or Thorn is sort of he's like a PETA kind of guy. He's any animal suffering he feels rage, and then the Daikini is meanwhile being suffered beneath a death dog, and he's like, a little help here.
Yeah, he's actually choking on a death dog's blood. All he needs is for him to take his foot and like roll him slightly over, and he can breathe free. But nope, can't do it. So yeah, then we get a 20-minute. Probably took me more than 20 minutes, even though it's a couple paragraphs to read him healing. Inhabiting the horse itself, being the horse. Yeah,
he says they merged, and in that moment he understands the transcendent physical glory of running. That was the heart of her being, the center of life and joy, to race, to eat the endless miles with flashing hooves, to feel the breeze of her own making stretch out her mane like a banner. And I posit that this might have been the moment that Thorn became the world's first brony.
There it is. Mark it in the history books until proven otherwise.
Yeah, there's a bit of an erotic charge there, I feel.
I couldn't help wondering whether he stopped and just took one of those massive peas that horses take where it squirts the ground and foams for a good 5 minutes and just a fire hose.
Right.
He went, man, this is where it's at. This is the good stuff.
It has some distance on it, so it's spraying onto the Daikini beneath the devil dog. He's just like, please! All right. I am very much alive and now soaked in a gallon of horse urine.
Yes.
Yeah, but so you get the further a wizard did it powers. It says, keep in mind we've been told he is exhausted. He's tired to the bone. He can barely drag himself across the scar to do this. But it says there was poison in her system. He cleansed it. There was bones chipped and broken. He smoothed them back into place. There were slashes deep and shallow across her body. How was he going to deal with this? He stitched them closed. Life remained with him solely as an act of will. All else was devoted to his patient. It was the most delicate of tight ropes to dance across. The slightest misstep would doom them both. Yet he didn't hesitate and didn't falter. So, bam! He's spending all this energy, possibly costing him his own life, to save a horse.
And again, Daikini, 3 breaths from death. He's like, now you're smoothing his muscles out? I mean, just bring him back to life. And just take the edge of your axe and just ever so gently tip the thing's body off. I can almost roll it off.
Right. Yeah, and it is true what they say. The last thing for blood to drain out of is the death dog's surprisingly erect death dog genitals, but it is jabbing me. It is oh boy, this is why we cut the heads off of them. But so yeah, he says there is a terrible ache across the chest, and for a brief moment he feared his heart had burst. Not quite. It was merely upset at the effort demanded of it, as was every other muscle in his body. He had thought himself exhausted after the battle with the mountains. We must have missed that. And later with the death dogs, but they were nothing compared for this. So it just further cements how exhausted he is, and yet his performance as a mage suffers not at all. And
right.
for the rest of this reading we did for this episode, we see passages like when Ferran had attacked him, it said he'd heard the stealthy pad of feet approaching from behind, but was so exhausted his brain hadn't processed the information. He breaks his back with his bare hands, no exhaustion holding him back. He goes on to plant some seeds to rejuvenate the mountains, he says. He desperately wanted sleep. He ached in every limb and bone. He cast the feelings aside. So maybe that's that calming throw, was it?
Yeah, calming pass.
A calming pass.
So
So yeah, maybe that's just what he needs to do every time he's exhausted. He throws a calming pass, and he can then plant some seeds and sow his own blood into the ground.
Yeah, if you're one of those guys, you have like chronic pain, you go into the chiropractor and he throws a calming pass, and I swear it works for me. I don't know. I know they're not recognized by the AMA and everything, but
Right.
Calming pass works.
Yeah, I mean, and sometimes if he feels like you're going in there too often, he starts using the placebo calming pass just to make sure you're not getting immune to it or anything, building up a tolerance.
The name of the horse, I believe, I don't know this, but I'm 97% sure it has to be true, is also the name of a Dan Fogelberg album from 1979, Wind Fleet. So, is the horse. And she's a tough old lady, is what he says. Oh, tough lady. She's not old. I'm sorry. I don't mean to cast aspersions. Never say a lady's age.
Yeah, but she's rejuvenated entirely. All her muscles smoothed, her bones healed, and Willow says, like, "Go free, my friend. You are now. You can go free on what we've been told are very barren plains without any real sustenance to be had. So he might be condemning him to her death by freeing her now, but who's to know?"
And also, as it's pointed out, coming up, all of them as well, because could have used a horse.
Yes, that's pretty much so we were talking about this. We knew that Daikini was alive. It is revealed now that he has been alive. He escapes under the death dog, and the Frangine starts berating Thorn. He says she needed to be free, Frangine. The Daikini wouldn't have allowed that. And then the Daikini coughs. And that's the first indication they have that he has been alive throughout this entire process.
He does one of those.
Exactly. Yeah.
Still under the death dog.
And yeah, that was all I had it for chapter 1.
Well, I just thought it was the end is supposed to be dramatic when he says his name, and I thought it would have been great if they'd ended. So he's talking to the guy. He says, "Oh, who are you then? Got you a name, have you?" Thorn was his reply. Thorn Drumheller. Huh. Because you look like a Willow. Yeah, well, we're not doing that anymore, all right?
Yeah, exactly. There's some rights issues. Or if he had said Thorn Offgood. Ugh, damn it. Willow Drumheller. Oh, damn it. I don't talk to a lot of people, so I've been wandering the realm for 12 years on my own.
Yeah, so that's all I got. Chapter 1. Oh my god.
Oh my god, it took so long.
It's draining.
Well, yeah, let's, before we move on to chapter 2, the last chapter we all read, this is the segment where our listeners write in with their own fanfic about the Shadow Moon universe, and we read some of that fanfic. We read some of the actual passages from upcoming chapters in Shadow Moon, and Mike tries to guess which one is real and which ones are fanfic. So we got 5 of you for you this time. You got 5 for 5 last week.
Coming off a triumphant week.
The rarely seen 5 for 5.
Swept the table, yes.
Now the listeners have had a bit more opportunity to get into character as the authors here. They are absorbing the roles of both Lucas and Claremont. I forget what we called that. Clucas?
Oh, I don't think we had...
Clericus? Lumont? I don't know.
Clericus?
We'll vote on it. Nothing sounds as revolting as Shatlart, but we'll...
Cloaca?
But yeah, we're going to do 5 of them this time, so let's get started. Number 1. Night held steady, but Thorn's vision was suddenly filled with a bright sunlit meadow. Wild ponies raced hither and yon, and Thorn realized he was viewing the world through Windfleet's gentle eyes, their minds forever melded by the healing. From here to forward, he would be able to use his insight to merge his consciousness to the mare as he did with the eagles. The vision changed. He knew with a certainty that the mare had shown him the ponies, so he would understand the utter truth of what she now beheld. The castle was a blot on the world, a place of death and evil from parapet to mooring. This place would come to his future, and when he gazed upon it in truth, death would follow.
Horse talk. Capital H, capital T. Horse talk is what I'm naming that. I'm going to say it's good. It's subtle, but I'm going to say fanfic, and I have no particular reason for that.
Okay. We have number 2. The Fornith slid from his horse, patting its flanks and whispering softly to thank his mount. He loosened the leather girth and rummaged through his pack for an apple. Feeding it to the beast, Penelon continued staring at the tower. He resumed his march forward, purposefully, but without celerity. At this close distance, it was obvious that the tower was easily 10 times the size of the Fornith, pitted from the sandstorms of the ages and scorched by the desert sun. Perhaps we will find her here, Penelon observed to himself and his horse as he approached the shadow of the tower, but I wouldn't wager the farm on it.
We've become an all equine-based fanfic.
Last time it was brownies japing, and this time it's horse talk.
Horse talk. I don't know. Real. I got to say something.
Number 3. The bastard had a final card to play, as Morag's skin popped back together before him, a dangling pennant of flesh, until air puffed it full as life and gave it a coarse form of animation. She took the whip made of herself in one hand, beckoned with the other in a crude parody of sexual invitation, lips stretching into a smile that Morag never made, lids opening to reveal shadow where eyes and soul had been. Thorn felt something hard, sharp-edged in his hand, realized without looking that he held an acorn, couldn't help a smile of remembrance as he recognized the high Aldwin's gift to him when he left on that first fateful adventure.
Fanfic.
Okay.
I thought when he was talking about a crude parody of sexual invitation, and then he felt something hard in his hand. Where is this going?
We have number 4. She gleamed like she'd just come from the jewelsmith, more pure than the metal itself had any right to be. All the gold was gone from her hair as well. If anything, it had turned more pale than her skin, shot through with blue highlights, like the after-image flashes reflected off an ice field. Only her hair retained their color, a blue grown so intense it was mostly black. They were the wrong eyes for her face, no longer any good for hiding the pain that racked her soul. The deceiver's doing, but there was no way she'd believe that. A side effect, he assumed, of the spell of assumption. Or perhaps some interaction of Elora's own powers with the energies the deceiver routed through her when he attacked the dragon.
Boy, these are good.
Hair talk on this one.
Yeah. I'm going to say fanfic.
Okay. And we have the fifth and final. There was a sharp whistle, thick fingers around stumps of teeth making a piercing, shrill sound. 17 or so, Thorn guessed from his brief insight. Stout, squat, formidable figures like the first stepped from behind and from seemingly within the rocks. There was no way they could have all remained hidden. The trooper, Garen, started visibly, surprised his own tracking instincts had failed as they never had before. Every figure bore a shock of fiery hair, strands of gold and orange and red that seemed to slowly wave and waver about them, betraying hints of faint, flashing blue, flowing to a mane on those who apparently were aged enough to sport a full beard. "I'm Tuss Galgard, o' the Forge folk, ween, and ye be trespassing, sure enough. A toll must be paid." Thorn swallowed hard.
Oh, that's very good. We get hair talk. Stumps of teeth. I'm going to say fanfic.
Okay. All right. Didn't go 5 for 5, but still a good showing, I think.
Okay, what do we got?
Number 1, that was the horse talk, merging with Wind Fleet and seeing the ponies. That was fanfic. You identified it correctly. That was fanfic from Lisa. That was, she said,
Okay.
she's a Patreon supporter who's been listening since day one, but that was her first attempt at fanfic.
Very nice.
We got number 2. You identified this one as real. This was Penelon and Fornith, not wagering the farm. No idea who Penelon is, but you thought it was real. It was fanfic from Patreon supporter Brian.
Brian, curse you.
I do not know if he looked forward to identify Penelon joining us later in the book, or if he just rolled the dice on that one, but very, very clever.
Brian, if you are under a death dog, I wouldn't roll him off the top of you.
We get number 3. This was Morag making a crude parody of Sexual Invitation, and Thorn felt something hard. You thought that was fanfic. It was real.
Good heavens.
I went into the doc, searched for sex, and that was the only that was the only time it occurred in the thing.
And your Lauren looked over your shoulder. What you doing, Connor?
Yeah, honey, please. The fourth one, this was the one of the blue highlights in Elora's hair and something about deceivers routing through, attacking a dragon. You thought that was fanfic. That is real from later in the book.
Well,
the hair.
Then I didn't do good this week at all.
You're I think you went 3 for.
I could go 3 for 5.
Oh no, you went 2 for 5. Wow,
yeah.
Very poor showing. Yeah, you thought both of the real ones were fanfic. But yes, the hair descriptions and the higher highlight descriptions continue, I guess, to the point where we meet the sacred princess. And then the final one, you thought it was fanfic. This is the Tuss Gargeld, the fiery shocks of hair. That was fanfic by Patrick. So I guess it was probably just a bridge too far to have 2 hair ones in there.
Yeah, you just suffered by comparison to the other hair thing. Don't sell yourself short. Good fanfic.
But yeah, thank you to everyone who sent those in. We got a lot more fanfics we could not use unless we want to make that into its own podcast, I think. But we might start posting them. We have a Discord chat channel now, which is, I don't know if it's for only Patreon people or not, but we might start posting some of these unused ones because they're all so good. But we gotta have some real ones in there too, so we just can't use them all. So. We'll find some way to get their efforts out into the public.
Well, we published a book, right?
That's true. I mean, well, that was fanfic about us. So, but yeah, maybe we can make our own publishing effort of all these people's unused fanfics.
Right.
But yeah, thanks to everyone who does support us on Patreon. That's patreon.com/372pages. You get this one early, and you get to do all sorts of other fun stuff like that too. You'll get to see the Tech War write-up, Tech War cards, and getting every episode early lets you get the fanfic in before everyone else. So thanks again.
Also, I tend to let people know before the episode what is currently irritating me. I wear my heart on my sleeve, and I usually put it out on Patreon as well. So
That was you joked about the Lauren looking over, wondering what I'm doing. I was looking at, you posted something that was a catalog of your many grievances with the spelling and capitalization, but you included an image on it.
Oh, what was the image?
I think it was like a devil dog. It was a very cute dog and like a devil outfit.
Yeah.
And it was like a very high like resolution image. So Lauren's like walks in to ask me some question about, something important, and I'm just sort of like squinting at the monitor, and there's an enormous dog in a devil costume, and she's like, "What now? Like, what are you doing?"
This is really hours of your week.
So yeah, thanks again to everyone who does it. But let's move on to chapter 2.
Chapter 2 opens, I think, with a bang.
Mm-hmm.
Garen, who the name I believe was Elvis Presley's dead twin brother's name.
Oh man, I spent months reading about him, and I do not remember the name of Elvis's brother, but that's something.
Yeah, Garen. I don't know how it was spelled. But,
Aaron, he had some other funny relatives' names. His uncle, his dad's name was Vernon, and his uncle was exactly what you would hope the sort of tag-along loser uncle of Elvis Presley to be, was Vester.
Oh, nice.
Vernon and Vester Presley.
Vester. Wow. So Garen has been wandering around. Garen's I believe, a pathfinder,
mm-hmm.
a trooper. And here's a description of him. Clothes and beard and hair were stiff with caked blood and mud and filth. And although his nose had long since grown numb and senseless, he knew he stank abominably. He had the feeling he could wash himself from now until the sun grew cold and never again believe himself wholly clean. That, of course, was lifted from the wiki entry of Nick Nolte.
Yes. It pretty much describes anyone who walks in and takes the middle seat on the plane in between you.
Right.
Yeah, I read that. It's like, oh, good. Clearly this is going to be a hero going forward. It's great that they're anytime you get a chance to describe them so disgustingly, it's good that is someone you're passing off as the hero of your book.
Comes up again too. That he is that he's a foul-smelling man is not just described once and then left. This is returned to. So
delightful.
Yeah.
He sort of describes what he had to do to Ferran, and Willow just adds on to the deep confusion we all had. He says, "Because mine were the first hands to touch him, and the first face his eyes saw, I breathed life into him, Rule. There's but one reason to take this particular boy and twist him to so foul a shaping, because he's linked with me." So again, you read that, and it's very difficult just not to be like, oh, his son. But I guess he did just deliver him. I don't know.
Was that a thing in the movie? Was that what he did or something?
No, he was a farmer. He was farming with a pig. There was no. That would have been a more shocking way to start the movie if Willow's, snipping umbilical cords and stuff. But nope, nothing to lead us to believe that, unless there's a 6 months where he sort of, he sort of got into it, but then, it was a hobby that he just dropped, like, home brewing or something. He was delivering babies of Daikinis, but.
Right. Yeah. So then they discuss whether or not they're going to take off together.
Right. And there's more
Yeah.
shade thrown on him for freeing the horse, because they do now have to just walk. But they before they can leave, like, Thorn knows how he is supposed to get rid of these devil dogs, I guess, because they are sort of like vampires. You have to do something specific, or I guess they can come back.
Oh, right. All right. So, yes.
He starts just like tossing him into the scar, these corpses, where they sort of, the mountains, I guess, then do their whole pulverize them, burn them, and turn them into dust.
Right.
And he does it to the final one he has to do is Ferran. And this description just not sure what's going on. He sank to his knees, laid his palms across the imprints he'd made, impulling his defenses as both invitation and gesture of friendship. He sensed no tangible reply. The mountain spirits were keeping a healthy distance. He made a helpless little fiddle with his hands. Not really an apology, as there was nothing he could say that could take away the hurt inflicted here, and he'd already refused to do what was wanted of him. At the last, he said simply, "Thank you." So my questions.
Mm-hmm.
The mountain
I'm here for you.
spirits different than the mountains of the last chapter?
It's unclear.
Okay. Making a helpless little fiddle with his hands. How do you interpret that if we had to see a video of you doing it?
I'm thinking, of course, of this is, the smallest violin in the world
Right.
playing for you kind
Right.
of thing.
But that's like always sarcastic, and he's just thrown his possible son into the ditch to be burned alive by the mountains or mountain spirits.
Question back at you. In pulling?
Yep. It's
capitalized? No. So
but marked as a error by spell check.
Yes. It's not a thing.
Yeah. And finally, what was the last thing? Oh no, I guess this. Oh yeah, he'd already refused to do what was wanted of him. What was wanted of him that he had been refused to do?
Mm-hmm. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know what's going on.
I'm thinking of like when I was the helpless little fiddle. I was sort of doing like the who does this? Like he's like waggling his fingers, being like, sorry about that. I didn't really mean to break the back of my son. Who would? I guess it's Woody Allenish is what I'm thinking of.
Yeah, you could also think of the who's the dog and the claymation dog?
Goliath.
No, the British one. The one
Yeah, Wallace and Gromit. Yeah,
Wallace and Gromit. I believe he does that when he's getting excited about cheese.
Yeah,
the hands go up next to his face and they kind of fiddle in the air.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah,
but so he starts to maybe this is what the mountains wanted him to do. Everyone's anxious to leave, but he discovers that he has one more task left to do, even though he's so exhausted. He says. He's observing how barren the land is. He says nothing in his experience, nothing in his imagination had ever presented him with so barren a wasteland. And I just it's not hard to imagine something being barren. Like it's not hard to imagine a lack of something. Like
right.
if it was like she was the most beautiful woman, or like these creatures, these winged dinosaurs were more spectacular and larger than he ever could imagine. It's like, okay, sure, like you're not really painting a good picture here if it's beyond your imagination. But it's like this barren wasteland. No, I think we can all pretty much imagine that.
Yeah, that's
it's the Bonneville salt flats, cracked, parched earth. There's nothing there.
Right.
Easy.
Right. I should point out in the space of 2 paragraphs, he's using insight and outsight. I feel like that's gilding the lily there. I don't think choose, man.
Right. Yes. Or
so
at least
it's
like
all happening at the same time. I don't know.
Yeah, you need a time to gear back up. You need your magic meter to refill after you've used some serious insight. Then you can, it puts a clock on when you can use your outside again.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So he's just dragging them all in, and they're just kind of just cleaning up the campsite or something while he's doing this? They're not helping, right?
No, I don't know. They're not. I think they're all sitting around making their own little fiddles with their hands, waiting for them to be able to get on the road.
Right. And so when he's done dragging them all, I don't have a ton of notes about this, but he says, "We be gone?" Garen asked companionably. Thorn chose to ignore the dour undertone to the man's voice. It had been a hard night for them all, no reason to expect best behavior. Willow seems like kind of a dick. He asked it companionably.
Right. And
there's a dour undertone, so that would be another challenge. Say the words "we be gone" companionably, but also with a dour undertone.
Hey,
with not your best behavior. So, okay, go ahead.
We be gone? I don't know. What the hell?
I'm going to ignore that dour undertone, Connor. You son of a.
Yeah,
it's
sorry.
been a long night. I ought to punch you right on the button. But you know what?
It is amazing how companionable I sound, considering you left me under a death dog as you healed a horse.
Let it go, man.
Take it.
Let
take
it go.
Take what you get.
Calming pass, you son of
a. But so he does a curious thing. I guess he starts planting seeds. He reaches into his endless bag of wonders and he pulls out a handful of seeds and one plump acorn. And he starts jamming his thumb into the scar and then planting seeds. And the acorn, I guess this is going to heal the scar. in the middle of this, we get an anecdote that I thought I'm just going to read because I thought it was funny. A young man, one of the freebooting Cascani, viciously savaged by a pack of death dogs. The wounds had turned septic, not poisonous though, from the start, generating a gangrenous rot that was eating him alive from within. Imagine how bad it would be if they were poisonous. Thorn was flush with his own gifts then, strong beyond his dreams, but sorely lacking in control. The healing got away from him. He found to his horror that he couldn't call back the energies he had unleashed. He was purging not only the infection, but healthy tissue as well. It had been a hard struggle that very nearly consumed Thorn, but the man lived. So you get the non-poisonous death dogs, and then you get a life and death situation that Claremont yada, yada, yada is over, and the guy lives.
This was a thing where I paused and said, I want to hear all about this freebooting Cascani. That's what I want more of this guy.
Unfortunately, he got halfway through that anecdote and was like, you know what, this is not worth telling. This has no bearing on anything.
And then while he's planting them, he rips his fingernail off.
Oh my God.
And then he decides to sort of go with it and pour his blood into the loamy earth. Mm-hmm. He cast his spirit self into the soil. So once again, he's just casting it about like it's, he's passing it around like a pack of cigarettes, his spirit self. He's in horses and wolves and eagles and dogs. And,
he's spreading himself thin.
He really is. But that's going to make it an oak that saves the mountains.
I think he's just, he's by putting his spirit self into the world. I think he's giving the plants a chance to take hold and heal the land.
And then I just want to give, for those who are not reading along, just a little taste of what you're up against. He started to sing a winter song about the world still and quiescent, where all the elements of being tidied themselves from the previous season and gathered their energies for the one to come. Now just imagine that times 1,000,000. And that's what we're up against.
I'm glad you picked that because I sort of did some research into the Willow verse, and I got a clip of the winter song that he starts to sing as he's healing this land.
Oh, you do?
Yeah. I pulled it. We can just cue it up. Actually, it was one I'd heard before. It sort of has. Many people don't know that it's from the Willowverse, but they've probably heard it as the holiday season starts. Thanksgiving.
Oh, it's a familiar song.
Yeah, you'll be surprised it came from Willow, but it's one that I bet you.
Oh, they are those death dogs are more melodious than I would have thought.
Yeah, they can carry a tune when they're not having their heads chopped off or teeth plunged into their eyes.
Yeah. And was that the choir master leading them, a 10-year-old boy who someone then had to crack his back in half?
Yes, exactly. He failed to bring the tenors in on the right time, so he had to be disposed of. But
someone throw him in the scar.
Someone had told him, I think Dr. Demento had told him that evil was good, so he had to. We do get one mention here as he's sowing these seeds or ripping his fingernail off, but he doubles down on something we talked about last time. Naturally, he says he clenched his fists so tightly he'd crush coal to diamond. He released them with a rush. He spread his fingers as wide as they'd go, a greater spread than most Daikini hands could achieve, laying his palms into the sodden earth. So the long fingers and hands they're going to play a role here. They're not just a weird casual thing to mention.
Yeah, they're wow. We gotta hook him up with
Klein and yeah.
This is an interesting thing. He right in the middle of all of this. He somehow gets energy from this. And then in the middle of a paragraph, it just says, there was a style of dance in the Spice Lands on the far side of this continent, at both village festivals and at court, where the dancers attached lengths of brightly colored ribbons to wrists and ankles. Mm-hmm. I'm sure like me, you're going, where's he going with this? The challenge was, so long as the music played, to never let one of these streamers touch the ground or even come slightly to rest. Not so hard for the wristbound ribbons.
Right.
Yeah, I can see that. Something altogether for the ties of each ankles. The dancers would prance and spin and whirl. The ribbons would stream behind them like pennants or wrap themselves around the outstretched limbs until it seemed that the figures were no longer flesh at all, but composed instead of wild flashing bands of color. And I just thought, this Spiceland place sounds like hell on earth.
Yes.
I never want to go there.
Yeah, it's like full of hula hoop girls from a Fish concert or something.
But that's just plunked in there. He actually doesn't. He doesn't land that.
No,
That's just. He just states that in the middle of talking about it.
I guess that's world building, as they call it. But it's just a glimpse into the Spicelands, where I suppose Chekhov's Spicelands could be in play, but very strange and a fun sounding challenge. But it does sound much more difficult to keep those lower to the ground ones off the ground than the high ones. That checks out.
It seems like something. It's really a young man's game. I don't think I'm going to even attempt that anymore.
Not around Thanksgiving. You don't want to.
Come on, get the ribbons out,
after the
everyone.
feast. Yeah. Oh, but so we do here. We get introduced. It was in the movie a lot, but we get the book's introduction to the slur of the Willowverse when the Daikini Gurren calls him Peck.
Yes,
he says it's a diminutive term for a diminutive people favored by those lacking sufficient wit to see beyond the audience. Thorn hated it. So
that special kind of wit we've been hearing with regularity
yes.
from our brownies.
Yep, tell not show. And then we get more of the accent here. He just has some choice phrases. Beats what could have been there, and that's a fact. Saw you change Peck for the attack. So you're some sort of shaper, maybe. Saw that when I saw, and that's a fact. Then you are a witchy boy. Witchy boy was that's my new favorite one too.
Witchy boy, yes. And he says he had food and water, a week's work there maybe, husbanded proper. And it was all salted proper, packed proper.
Didn't put ketchup on it.
So we get a description of the food that is no longer there. Like, yeah, I know, but it's gone. So,
right.
You should have seen it. I mean, there was cans of that beef. Do you like that beef there? And that it's in kind of a brown gravy. It doesn't look like much, but it goes down good.
Good Italian beef. You got an old style,
yeah.
Wash it down.
Mm-hmm. Put a dog on there, too, and then get some of them sport peppers. Oh, you got to have it that way.
The sports peppers, they the same thing as giardinera.
Yeah, they got the sport peppers in the giardinera there. If you go over have you been to Dinuccio's? It's over there in West Chicago. They got one they put on the sport peppers and the giardinera.
I ain't been down there since the night Chicago died. I gone over the east side, what doesn't technically exist.
Sure.
Is that well, God.
That's a rabbit trail. All right.
Do not show that to anyone who comes from Chicago. I will be chagrined if they they do that. Like, here's analyzing the accent work in the Revenant or something like that, and it's like, well, this is mostly accurate, but they wouldn't have said this word that way, and your analysis system might explode if you put mine through that.
Yes. Do not attempt it. All right. Well, then they get talking about, like, why did you get rid of the horse? Or no, he doesn't really tell him that, but he's like, my horse is gone. And mm-hmm. Willow Thornbody is like, ouch, is he? I didn't notice. But they decide to set out together, mm-hmm. and they're gonna. He said we could use a boat, and he says, well, I've got one.
Yep. They sort of do the smash cut. A boat. Oh, I might know where you can get a boat, and then it breaks for commercial. There's even like mm-hmm. a little paragraph space in the book, so they travel the 3 days it takes to get to the river,
and then we get to one of my favorite characters, Mulroon.
Mulroon, yeah, he's got an iconic introduction. It says Mulroon was as sour-faced as ever.
Yes, he not as tall as Garen, easily twice as broad, built like a barrel. His hair, okay. Back to hair, was a thicket of midnight curls making up on chest and back and limbs for the increasing lack of it atop of his head. So bald,
yeah.
furry
on his back.
A beard that he crops along the line of his jaw like a douchebag. And that's to cover for a double chin that no amount of exercise could remove. So I guess no matter how many times he hits the Peloton,
Right.
he's still got a sack of fat hanging from his ugly, furry face. Sprinkling of salt among the pepper as age made its presence felt. So he's old, decrepit.
Jowly.
There was no comparison between Mulroon and Garen. The Pathfinder had him beaten. Well, I would hope so. We haven't seen a big description of him, but this is an ugly, wide.
Yeah, keep in mind Garen smells and looks like garbage too.
But so this is a big but. Well, Garen had the looks. There was a charm and character to the Cascani captain that made him just as memorable to the ladies.
Dear God.
They'd give Garen the first glance, but always return to Mulroon. Ladies out there,
Right. Intrigued?
are you picking up what we're putting down?
Uh-huh.
So I was fascinated by this, and so I did a little digging on the dark web.
Oh.
And yes, and the expanded Willowverse did not let me down.
Man. It never does.
Yeah, the tales of Mulroon are aplenty if you dig far enough. I didn't even have to dig very long, and just came across this little chapter of the Mulroon charm, and so let's just play it out. It's just a quick snapshot of
it's
how
from
he does it.
Mulroon had his own volume.
Oh yes,
okay.
Certainly. There's Mulroon fanfic. I didn't even want to wade to talk about putting the privacy filter on. And,
Yes. Okay.
Because it's Mulroon.
Sure.
He's
Yeah.
a swordsman, you know. So.
Yeah. His tales of the ladies returning back to him. So.
Right. So
Okay.
here's one of those tales.
Sweet.
Susan, hi. Thanks for picking this place. It looks great.
Oh, I know, right? Veronica told me about it. Said all the hottest Cascani come here.
Oh yeah. Ooh, check out that Pathfinder. He's pretty cute.
I mean, yeah, he's tall. He has chiseled features. He's extremely handsome and exudes a powerful sexuality, but nah, he's not for me.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Place is packed with guys like him. I don't know what Veronica sees in this. Hang on. Who's that?
Wow, he is built like a barrel.
And his face, so sour.
Ooh, I know. He looks deeply unhappy, like he'd be really hard to be around.
Uh-huh. And his head, bald as can be.
But there's thick, curly black hair all over the rest of his body.
Susan?
Well, tell me, you're not imagining that hairy back of his.
Well, of course. And are you seeing the chin that I'm seeing?
It's a double! Oh, he is really out of shape.
And he's going gray.
Oh, go say hi to him.
You know what? I think I will.
Betty is just incorrigible. Betty, what happened?
A weir came up and immediately made friends with him.
A weir? What did he look like?
Well, his sleek mahogany fur was plastered to his skull with the luster of fresh lacquer, which in turn made his dark eyes appear that much larger.
Betty, don't wait up for me.
Susan!
Wow. Well, yeah, makes sense that, what they said is true.
That's true. He's a looker. He's a looker.
Yeah.
And a charming dude with quite an accent as well. So what do you got for this accent?
Oh, my God. So this one, if you're not reading, this one it just gets to the point where it's even hard to understand what they're doing because they just leave out letters after letters. For example, you get a sentence like, "What's that to you?" And that is written, "What's," perfectly normal. "Tha," THA apostrophe. T apostrophe Y apostrophe. It's like how punk rockers will be like they'll use YR instead of your for some reason, but it's that to the extreme. It tests the limits of what's intelligible.
And in the world of the fiction here, well, I guess this is true for the Pathfinder too. I don't find the analog in real life because the descriptions of these people stirs the mud in the water. It does not clarify.
Yeah.
Because these are Cascani, and these are like river people or something.
Mm-hmm. They're sort of yeah.
But then there's another people that they cohabitate with.
Yes.
The Weirin?
The Weirin is like they're sort of, from what I gather, they are sort of like half seal, half man, aquatic beings. Yes. And they have their own language too. We do not get an example of it, but we're told what it sounds like. So a couple people requested that we imitate it, which of course we will try. The Weirin they're underwater, so when Mulroon is going to tell them that they're setting sail, he walks over to the surface and says, he leans over the side and sang a series of noises that best resembled dolphin bubbles crossed with seal barks. A sleek and shining face immediately broke surface. So yeah, a series of noises that best resembled dolphin bubbles crossed with seal marks.
You go first.
Oh, God.
The people analyzing your Chicago accent forgive all
right
now.
For that perfect recreation. You could feel my double chin jowling as I did those barks into the water.
So he leans over, and I suppose the hair on his shoulders sort of like tumbles forward and hangs off the edge of his thick frame as he makes this sound.
And then the subtitles say, "Hey,
hey, dumbass, grab the rope."
Yeah, but so the Wern, I guess, they're underwater, but they're also comfortable being on land, and I think they can just do whatever. So they're very versatile.
They adopt one another's children,
right? So
and then they have to cast a spell. Oh, here it is. Okay, together the two races roamed the whole of the globe. Okay, so they're everywhere, and helped bind it together with trade. The structure of both societies was familiar, and it was altogether normal for Weir children to be fostered to Cascani households and vice versa, with appropriate spells being cast to enable the air-breathing Daikini to survive underwater. So, Timmy, we're sending you off for a while. Am I staying with my cousin? No, we're throwing you into the river with the otter people. But I can't even swim. We'll cast an appropriate spell.
Right. Are you up on
stop grousing and go waterproof everything you own?
Yeah. How's your Wern? He's like, I've learned to say, "Where is the library?" Like this is, but no, immersion. That's what's really going to do it. We want the trade to keep up.
So there were no restrictions against intermarriages. So that every Cascani was in some small way related to every other Cascani.
Oh, yeah.
That's, oh, boy. All right.
That's, it's the type of detail that the book would not have suffered in any way if that was omitted. But now we know that they're just banging their cousins left and right.
Yep, and they're throwing their children to otter people who lacquer their hair. Did you see that little detail?
My impression was that they were sort of all covered in hair, sort of like seal hair.
Yeah, they fur, they said, but they said it was freshly lacquered.
Nice.
That was also in that bit of fiction we just heard. They bring that up in there as well, in the adventures of
right. Yes, right. Yeah, they're like John Travolta and preening in Saturday Night Fever, just sort of oiling up the hair.
I work really hard on my hair, and you're touching it.
I did like this detail too about just how the Cascani, how Mulroon had come to know Willow, and it was just a great character. Mulroon's brother-in-law introduced them, but sadly he had to be put down after a death dog bit him. So Mulroon's brother-in-law was just out, coming home from the bar and got attacked by a death dog. Says that was the way with death dogs. They start the attack by eliminating anyone capable of curing their infections or doing them significant harm. So the non-poisonous death dog's strategy is to eliminate anybody who's capable of curing their non-poisonous infections.
That is quite an operation they got going on there.
Yeah, really.
Death dogs.
Yeah, it's so I guess they have their 10-year-old boys who they've tasked with identifying who can cure the non-poisonous infections. That's part of just believing that good is evil. You're also trained to spot the healers of the community.
Man, yeah. And And here we get the action sort of unfolds in a very foggy way here as well, because there's a crew on this boat, I guess. Some of them obviously underwater.
Yeah.
But what's this name that he suddenly starts yelling a name? It's like, who's that? Have we ever heard of this guy before? Like Razzo or something?
Yeah, I wasn't sure.
I didn't even know what was going on.
That's the guy who's underwater. I think that's one of the Wern who's, I assume we'll see him later. But yeah, Razzie is, oh no, maybe that's his mate. That's just a guy who's his first mate is Razzie.
Yeah, so there's a mate, and anyway, it's just a whole bunch of names being thrown at you, and you're not given, again, there's no space, time, space, everything, so you're like, where are they going? They're on one boat, they transfer to another boat, they're taking off down the river. They
use this was a description that reminded me of Klein, just in terms of how lazy it was. Garen is talking to Mulroon. He says, "Beg pardon, shipmaster," Garen asked, "not quite sure how to approach this big-bearded ruffian with the airs and manners of a pirate." So he just sort of punts and is like, "Yeah, you know what your classic description of a pirate is? That's what he looks like. Yes. Just black beard, that's pretty much him. I don't want to work any harder on this. I usually have an artist drawing this for me, so."
Right. Yeah, so they're on the boat, and then there's a very confusing thing about, we find out who the kid was, but this was so obscure.
You mean the boy that he broke his back?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He sent somebody after them. This guy, Mulroon, sent to find him or something, and one of them was the kid, and so he became possessed by the devil dogs or something.
I didn't track it. I thought he had been like converted by someone. I
think it's Mulroon's son. Is all I could figure.
Is Ferran?
I think.
I didn't pick up on that.
He's okay.
He did say,
Since when do the Wern act as combat flankers, he asked. Seemed prudent in the circumstances. There's more to this than this damnable dogs. I know, Thorn hissed and softly hammered fist on knee. Aye, Mulroon nodded. Baddest kind of business, this. Tore through Saganac, 3 weeks back, just before the dark of the moon, left dead and worse behind. Is there anything... And that's I guess, Thorn asking, is there anything I can do? What was needful's already been done, Thorn, but I thank you for the offer. I sent the trooper after you mainly as a precaution. Glad to see that at least.
I think the trooper is Gurin. He sent him to rescue the healer.
Trooper... then I don't understand at all.
I don't think we're going to get much more information about Ferran if his wiki page is any indication. I think Garen sent him he was tracking down the Willow, the healer, because some mess happened in Saganac, which we're not really led to believe what it is, but I think the death dogs might have come through there. We should probably move on.
Yeah, all right.
It's very confusing. It's very hard to understand what's happening in front of us, and the backstory is even more confusing.
Right.
I liked this exchange, though. This is probably the one part that so far has made me laugh out loud, because we were joking. We were joking last time about how once the prologue ends and it flashes forward 12 years in a row, Willow/Thorn is already like grizzled. He's grown a beard. He's like, his face is windswept and sunburned and craggy. But then we get this actual exchange that sounds like he should have been chopping wood at his cabin while he has it. Gerwin relented a little and gave him the only answer he knew. But I figured they were looking for Willow. I beg your pardon, Thorn said. The Nelwyn sorcerer, don't you know? Willow Ufgood. Willow Ufgood, Thorn repeated. Now there's a name I haven't heard in a very long time. So just the oldest cliche in the book they are trotting out here.
Willow the White. Yes, that was what they used to call me.
But it turns out that Gerwin has been trying to track down Willow, not realizing he's been traveling with him the entire time. Can you believe it? That's never happened in a movie before. He's trying to track him down for a very important reason. The Ascension, the celebration of the sacred Princess Elora's 13th birthday, a year of life for each of the great domains. Willow is her godfather and all, isn't he? So they're just, the reason he went out into the wilderness, into the barren wastelands to defy death dogs, and everything was so that he could get Willow to come to a girl's birthday party.
Yes. And then Willow comes, and before anyone can stop him, snaps her in half. Like, no, that's not what we wanted you to do. What? That's what I do to kids. I thought you knew that.
Yeah, you invited a guy with big hands to your party. You know what he's going to do. But yeah, they seem to imply. I mean, my guess is it's like, how did she survive her castle being destroyed when Mad Mardigan and all? And my guess is that the magic teddy bear he left her might have some role to play in that. So,
oh sure, yeah.
We get one more cliche though, which had to have reminded you of this, but. Gerwin is like being like, "You're Willow?" He's like, "It can't be right." Then I mean, Willow's a great sorcerer, a legend, a hero. He can't be anything like you. And not saying that you understand you're lacking courage or nothing like that. He continued hurriedly, fearing he'd give offense. Not the way of it at all. It's just, you were expecting someone taller, Mulroon suggested, almost beside himself with throttled delight. So the classic Dalton line from Roadhouse, they appropriate to describe Willow as well.
Yeah, well, the year that this was written, I think I think the one influenced this. I think, right. Directly stolen from this. For this, I mean, yeah. I can't believe they went on for like a full paragraph of, sitcom-y.
Right.
No, the Willow I know is,
Right.
courageous and strong. He's right behind me, isn't he?
It pretty much is that. Oh, boy.
So that's and I think that he decides not to tell him who he is.
I think I don't know. I think he was saying that you were expecting someone taller is the culmination of him coming to grips with that being Willow. Because I thought he knew he was a Nelwyn, so I wasn't why he was expecting a Nelwyn to be tall, but that's beside the point.
I have to confess, my final note says this, chapter 2 ends with a dozen pages of he and Mulroon talking and eating a sandwich. I paid almost zero attention.
Yep. I like this. He pulled out. So we've gotten some things that are very hard to understand, very vague descriptions, but then we get, Thorn rummaged about in the pouch until he came up with the remains of a sandwich, still as fresh as when he'd stuffed it in the pouch. With a start, he realized he couldn't recall when that was. He broke off a chunk for Mulroon, smaller ones for Frangine and Rule, kept what was left for himself. Tomatoes and cheese, with a strip of marinated meat, flavored in basil from his own garden. So yeah, we had no idea what the hell was going on at the Scar, who the mountain spirits were, but here's the detailed description of Willow's sandwich that he's eating.
This reminded me of a fairly recent Riff Tracks movie we did. What was the vampire one that we just did? Where he bites the police captain and he runs to his office and he's like thrashing around in his office because he's been bitten by a vampire. Reaches into his desk drawer and pulls out a sandwich, which he begins eating and then spits out because his desk sandwich isn't tasting good to him anymore.
Right. I don't remember what movie that was. Man, that was recent.
That's only like 3 movies ago.
Good Lord. I'm going to look it up.
You're doing my thing of completely emptying your RAM and starting over again.
I did. They didn't even try to pull, though, the classic fantasy trope where it's like, it had tomato and cheese with a strip of marinated meat flavored in basil and lupin root from his own garden, or just some fantasy bullshit herb that he's using to do it. They didn't even get that lazy.
Fresher than mint, and yet with a slight tingle, it was a peppery herb that his ancestors had grown ever since his cousin banged his other cousin.
Was it martial law with a desk sandwich?
No. It was like. The vampire with the super long fingers. I think it was shot in Romania. I don't know why we're trying to figure this out and wasting our airtime.
Nothing turns up for desk sandwich for me. But, if you know what that was, be sure to let us know, because it's nothing better than 18 people being like, you idiots, it was this one. I guess it'd be worse if no one knew, though. But so that was sort of my notes there. The last thing was them sort of talking about the sacred princess Alora Danam. Mulroon is Willow sort of, I guess there's a prophecy that she's going to save the kingdoms, but Mulroon is skeptical. He just thinks that she may look the part, Drumheller, good and glorious as spun gold, but I wouldn't count on her to see me through a sunset breeze. So, the prophecy may not be believed by everybody in the realm.
Wow, that's kind of the fantasy equivalent of I wouldn't piss on him if he was on fire.
So that's it. That takes us to the end of chapter 2.
Woo!
Man, yeah, a lot to cover. A lot of nonsense.
Yeah, and when I say that he sits and eats a sandwich and they talk, I wasn't being lazy. I tried to read it. I just felt like there wasn't anything in it.
No, yeah, exactly.
So I'm glad to see you came to the same conclusion.
Cool. Well, I think we can move on to some of the emails we've gotten. Let's see what people wrote in. So this first one is the one I teased at the beginning. This came from Adam. He says, like you, I've been perplexed as to why Shadow Moon, despite purporting to be a Willow sequel, isn't all that much of a Willow sequel. He came across an interview with Chris Claremont where he speaks candidly about the project. There's a link that we can tweet out. He says, according to Claremont, it was George Lucas's idea to move the novel trilogy away from the movie and make it its own unique thing. Lucas and Lucasfilm instructed Claremont not to use any characters other than Willow, Elora Danan, and the Brownies. And even then, I believe there was confusion whether or not the Brownies were supposed to be the same pair. Listening to Claremont speak, I get the impression the original idea was to focus more on Elora Danan as she grew up. Claremont then claims after he finished the trilogy, people at Lucasfilm panicked, asking him why characters like Mad Mardigan and Sorsha weren't in the novels. So he penned the prologue right before the first book went to press.
Oh, brother.
So, yeah, you get that. Studio notes are always known for making things better and less confusing. So it's good.
Well, so is that why the Brownies were... So they're wandering the wasteland and he became a dandy? Is that... sort of tacked on, like, so, well, they're kind of the same guys, but they're not really the same guys, or,
Yeah, I guess.
Before he was wearing a mouse skull, and again, now he's wearing a puffy shirt or whatever.
Now he lives in Willow's bag and keeps his personal artifacts there. So, yeah, I guess that's important to do, though. But it does seem like, hey, you know who we should really explore is that baby of the book. That's who people really latched onto. What happened to her when she grew up? Nobody cares. All right, 3 books about it. We got another email from Ben who talks more about Chris Claremont. He says, I suspect that Claremont places little stock in the creative output of others. Comics are frequently a collaborative medium, but every time Claremont takes back a run of comics he handed off to another writer, everything that new writer did disappears. Recent events are no longer referred to and plot lines pick back up where he left them. As for new characters, while the lucky ones are put onto a bus and head out of state, the rest are killed off within a few issues or just vanish without a straight. To sum up, yeah, I bet fans of Willow would not like this book.
Oh, so he just doesn't work well with others? Is another...
I guess so. I guess he just thinks he's
goes his own way,
the top dog, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
This one is from Sharon. She got her copy of Shadow Moon in the used in the mail, and when she got it, she picked it up, flipped through it quickly. It's a used copy, so I was delighted to see someone had done a little sketch. It appears to be the only marking that this person made in the book. I have no idea why. I have no idea if this thing is even in the book. I don't know why this would be the only picture, and they have drawn a llama corn. So it is a unicorn llama. Down on one of the pictures, she says, I can only believe this book was clearly meant for me, as the universe apparently diverted me away from non-llama-corned books, because she had bought one that had been canceled. Truly a gem to cherish, or something. And so we will tweet out the picture of the llama corn. It is very, very nice to see. It's hopefully something that we can do something with as a community here, but it made me very happy to see the llama corn.
Is it in the style, I hope, of Jim Tice's drawings?
It's very much, actually. It's that sort of, the person started doodling and without any real artistic talent. This is another good one. This is Jake writes in. He says, when you told the story, Mike told the story of how scooping was banned in his son's schools in the last episode, I was instantly reminded of a similar and, in my own opinion, far more idiotic game that was played in my middle school. So maybe we can make these a whole series. I'll tell it the way you guys did and save the name for last. Here's how the game was played. First, you would sneak up on a strictly male friend of yours, then grab him by the groin from behind with 1 or 2 hands, of course, and hoist them into the air, shouting, Gaddafi! Then obviously laugh. Although, who would have thought a former dictator being stabbed in the anus with a bayonet would lead to a paranoia-inducing gooch-grabbing game for middle schoolers?
Wow.
So I guess these are like, regional Coke and Pepsi terms, or, what you call the strip of lawn in between your sidewalk and your lawn type of thing. So
right.
In middle school, we had, when you're in 7th grade, you lived in fear of Sevi Bop Day, which is when the 8th graders would come around and just bop you on the head with a closed fist. And we had the same thing that your son's principals had, where the principal or vice principal had to get on the thing and being like, if there are any reports of Sevi bopping happening tomorrow, there will be immediate suspension. Sevi bopping in all forms will not be tolerated.
Sevi?
Like 7th grader, a slur for 7th graders.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
So
Sevi bopping. What is the Korean one?
Oh, yeah.
This is a real thing. I am not making this up. It is hugely popular. You kind of make a finger gun, but then also secure it with your other hand, so you have 2 finger guns together.
Concho.
That makes sense.
Concho. Yes.
And then you poke it very sharply into someone's butt crack. Right?
Yep.
Am I getting this right?
That is you got gun and then jabbing it up there to your fellow middle schooler, I presume.
I believe there is a statue in honor of this game. I'm not making that up, so I'll post something. I hope I'm wrong, but I don't think I'm wrong. So.
All right. Well, we have more emails, but we do not have time for them. Thank you for writing in. If you have any more regional terms where you attempt to grab parts of your fellow 7th graders' bodies, please let us know about those. If you are a principal who's ever had to discipline 7th graders for doing such a thing, please let us know how that goes. If you laughed about it in the teacher's lounge, or if you just found it very depressing thing to have to do. I would
also like to know if you had an unusual gun noise as a child.
All right.
Anything out of the making it the sound with your mouth territory would be welcome.
And if you have any sentences that would be funny to read in a terrible Chicago accent, please send them our way too. We can assemble those as well. But until then, it's time to revisit the dumb sentences of the week.
A capital letter is a letter that's big. A capital letter is not a small letter. A capital letter is big, big, big.
So yeah, we pick dumb sentences of the week. Every week, people have really, really stepped up their game. We get a bunch of ones that are wide and varied and things I didn't even realize were dumb the first time I read them. So it's a treat to revisit them. We'll start with Andrew. This is one regarding Mulroon's accent. When they first met him, Mulroon called, deliberately making his island accent so broad it was near incomprehensible. So he says that's a great skill to have for conversation, deliberately making yourself more incomprehensible. But maybe that's what the hard to read text was meant to echo.
Who does that though?
Yeah.
And why?
I can't even Boomhauer on King of the Hill. It's hard to even imagine. I could not do a Chicago accent so bad that it would be incomprehensible.
Well,
here's Patrick. He says, unfortunately, on such occasions, only the were generally lived to tell the tale, and the subject they did no talking. So he says they only generally lived? Or they only generally lived to tell the tale but never did? He was very confused by what it meant to only the word generally lived to tell the tale. George submitted, now that's a name I haven't heard in a very long time. He said, we all saw it coming, yet it hurt all the same. Tom submitted, then he leaned over the side and sang a series of noises that best resembled dolphin bubbles crossed with seal barks. He said he's going to start doing that next time he's in an uncomfortable conversation and is looking for an escape. I think by the way that we imitated it, that would definitely get you out of any conversation, potentially get you fired and or committed.
Yeah, that's the challenge. I want to see you film it at the moment when you approach the, you're crossing the border. Papers, right. Please.
Yeah, got anything in the trunk? Kyrie submitted the very basic, you were expecting someone taller? She just said, George, no. This comes from Heather. I don't know if it was also from 12-year-old Billy, but it was, the moon was occluded behind a scuttling line of clouds, turning the landscape light and dark in a random sequence, blurring further the distinction between what was and what was not. She says there has to be a better way to say this, but reading it is so tiring, I don't have the energy to make suggestions.
Yeah, I had noted that one as well. That was one of mine. Just so tiresome to read. Yeah. It saps your energy.
So you're exhausted, but you're still able to fully heal horses and plant seeds and all that.
Yes, of course.
Zoe submitted, a flash of insight gave him a view from the brownie's perspective as he was wrapped snug in streamers of raw flame that seemed to erupt from the solid earth at his feet. And she had the same theory as me. She said it sounded like Claremont really wanted to describe this like a comic book panel. Remembered that he was writing from Willow's perspective, and instead of changing it, decided Willow was randomly using his mage powers to view the scene in the third person. Bonus, that very Kleinian seemed. It seemed to erupt from the solid earth at his feet. You're describing it. Tell us what's happening.
Yes.
This was the most popular submission of the week. 3 different people, Chris, Janelle, and Joe, all submitted. I think this is Mulroon. As you request, sisters, elder, cousins, consort. They said, referring to everyone you meet this way will quickly get tiring.
Yes.
But I guess, since you're marrying your cousins, you feel the need to toss that in there. Alex submitted, something bowled him over from behind as he reflectively tucked arms and legs and head tight to his body, taking on the aspect of a hedgehog to roll like a ball beneath the death dog's onslaught. I marked that one too, just the describing him as taking on the aspect of a hedgehog. Alex said, I don't really know anything about hedgehogs, but I assume they don't actually roll around in a ball like Sonic.
Right. Also, though, reflexively doing it.
Right, yes.
So if on Sevi bopping day,
yeah,
every kid drops to the floor and rolls into a ball.
Yeah, the moment they hit him, it's like the mallet on your knee at the doctor's office. Alex also submitted, this was his runner-up, but I liked it better. The stench didn't make him gag. He says, I love when an author tells you something didn't make a character do something. One last one from Lucas. Whatever, Garen shrugged, as though this was but one more strangeness to be encountered on the road, to be recounted with suitable embellishments in barracks to his messmates over evening ale. He says, dear Lord, how many more weirdly specific details can you add? And that has 4 commas and 2 em dashes in that sentence. 6 commas.
God.
What do you... I've got... what do I have? I had that moon was occluded one just because that was all one sentence. And this is the one I liked. He cradled the acorn in his hands, energies coruscating about the tiny seed, awaking its own infant passion, but most of all, imbuing it with a portion of Thorn's own essence, a dash of wonder, a bit of joy, a pinch of determination. So acorns now come with joy because they've been coruscating full of energies. Go to hell.
The end of that also sounds like a plaque on a grandma's kitchen wall or something.
Yeah. Dash of wonder, bit of joy, pinch of determination, and the grandkids love it. Cookies. Yeah. Yes. I don't know.
Mine is, it might have been red, but I think it could have been in the middle of something. A death dog sprang into view, charging straight up the slope, announcing its attack with the gobbling snarl that was their trademark. So when other animals attack you with a gobbling snarl, there are going to be lawsuits, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah. Infringement?
Yes.
Yeah.
Excuse me, did you just do a gobbling snarl? No, it was way more snarl. There was very little gobble in it.
Yeah, they're like they're like Michael Buffer, the Let's Get Ready to Rumble guy. They will seek you out and they will make you pay if you unknowingly or knowingly infringe on that.
Well, when they're not killing all people who might be able to heal or know who could heal, they're slapping lawsuits left and right.
Ah, yes. Well, thank you for sending those dumb sentences to us, folks. They were very dumb, and we appreciate it. And thanks you for all the dumb sentence submitters that are Patreon supporters, because once again, you should do that. You should support us on Patreon, get every episode early, and get all sorts of other additional nonsense. Patreon.com/372pages. I think for next time, we should just keep up this 50-page route. It seems to be enough to discuss and long to read, but not, not impossible.
As long as I'm given dispensation to check out for a page or two.
No, I think that's perfectly fine. If there's anything dumb, people will alert us to it. But that's page 150. They say you talk like a Nelwyn. So let's we'll drop it there in case you're reading a ebook or different book that we are reading. Page 150. You talk like a Nelwyn. That's where we'll stop next time.
Total ending on a total slur. Very nice.
No, Nelwyn is the real one. Peck is the slur. Peck is the P word.
I know, but if you talk like one, you're sort of implying.
Sure, that's
is
true.
that the nice way to insult someone?
I guess so. You talk like a Chicagoan.
Yeah. Oh, maybe we'll retire that. I'll come up with a new accent for next time.
I don't know if it'll be as much fun. But yeah, until next time, I guess, have a happy Thanksgiving to all you Patreon people and to everyone else who's going to be hearing this after Thanksgiving. I hope it went poorly. Well, I didn't mean it.
All right. We'll be back again, you Nelwyns. This is 372 pages we'll never get back.
Peck's out.